It's fair to say that I am what a lot of people would term essentially a pacifist. I am a peace-loving person. I would fight, but only in some very specific circumstances, and you really don't want to find out what they are. Military service, beside the point, it doesn't really matter. I am a peace-loving individual, and I will do everything that I can to preserve the peace. But I wanted to say that my subject today of timid isn't decent is on purpose, and I really want for people to get to understand that that's what I'm wanting to get across here, that timid isn't decent. And that's what I'm going to talk about on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, and I'm Kurt. Today is Monday, the 20th of September of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. And again, the subject for today is timid isn't decent. And I'm going to go ahead and read my notes so that you have a little bit of an idea, sort of where I'm coming from. I consider myself to be a generally decent person. I'm not going to say all the time, but generally so. I make it my business to be nice and polite to others, even when they often don't really deserve it. In my mind, polite society goes the way of the dinosaur only when nobody chooses to participate in and model good and proper behavior. I know some folks will choose to respond in far less than reasonable ways, and some for what they consider to be good reason, by the way. I recognize that too. Typically, stooping to their level does not help anything. That doesn't mean allow them to behave badly with no repercussions for so doing. In a recent incident where someone decided I was going to do things their way or suffer the consequences, I stood up and refused. In that instance, they were in a position of authority, that's in quotes a position of authority, so my answer was to tell them I was done with the place they represented. Under circumstances where I own the responsibility and commensurate authority, though, know that I will politely but firmly make boundaries and impropriety known. I'm not intending to go to war if it's not completely necessary. I'm not planning to just lie down and be quiet or die either. You may think it an odd thing to say, but timid is not being decent. Being timid is not being decent. In fact, decent people are obliged to speak up when they see wrong. They can't just sit back and let the evil occur when they're aware it's going to happen. If you're the kind of person that mistakes timidity for decency, you need to do one thing: wake up. They're nothing like the same thing. The two are nothing like alike. Look, again, I work very hard to be a decent individual. Do I always succeed? No, I don't always manage that. I try very hard to do it, and the older I've gotten, the more I've decided that it was something that was well worth my time and effort to do. But the fact of the matter is, most of the time, regardless how anybody else acts, I'm going to do my best to be a decent, reasonable, loving, caring human being. That doesn't mean that I'm going to let people get away with wrong and bad things, particularly evil things, and most particularly when they're related to my family and those about whom I care. And I have to tell you, where I care, you could argue less for them than I care, for example, about my family. That's the family of man. That's humanity. When people do evil to humanity, it may not be the first thing on my mind, but I promise you it's on my mind. Decent people don't sit back and let evil happen. It doesn't mean we run around with guns in our hands or beating people up. That's not what it means. We find ways to make decency thrive, to make that which is good grow and burgeon and become better and stronger, so that we're not spending our time worrying about whether or not we're dealing with indecent individuals. I get it. You deal with a bunch of people, and those people choose to act in ways that are essentially indecent. I get it. But what you have to understand is the decency begins with me, and then from there what has to happen is I have to make sure that I stand up for decency where it doesn't exist. I have to do that. It's something I have to do as a decent human being. If I'm not doing that, there are going to be problems, and you need to know it. And if you're not doing that, likewise. Don't let, there's this tendency to say that Christians aren't floor mats. Well, that's not really exactly true, and I don't want to get too far off subject, so I'm not going to go too far into that. That's something for another video. But what I will say today is this. If you want to see decency, the first thing you have to do is be decent. That's the first thing you have to do. If you want to see decency and you're a decent human being, part of that task, part of that job is to make sure that others do not behave in indecent fashions. If you allow people around you to behave indecently, and, obviously there are limitations on your responsibility and your authority, both. But the point is, you need to make sure that when people are around your family and your friends and those you love in general, that you strive to accomplish decency above all things. There will always be people who will be indecent. There will always be people who will do wrong. And you have a responsibility to do everything that you can to make sure that they have the minimum possible effect on decent, reasonable human beings. You like a society that you can walk the streets without fear of somebody gunning you down or stealing your wallet? Do you like a place where you can drive your car without having to worry about people throwing rocks at it? Do you like places where even you don't like to see one person gunning down another person? Then decency is what's called for, and not just in terms of you acting as a decent human being, but in terms of you making sure that others around you, inasmuch as it's your responsibility and you have authority, to do likewise. And it's even reasonable for you to seek to be in positions where, as a decent human being, you can further the cause of decency by bringing other people sort of under you without the perspective of lordship, but with the perspective of trying to get those people to understand. I'm going to tell you something. Many times I've worked in places, different places, and when I've walked in the door, I could hear the language for days. Nasty, filthy language for days. And let me just tell you that I've been guilty of that language. Even recently, I'll acknowledge. But I try very hard not to be. And here's the thing. When I walk into a situation like that, if I stand up as a decent human being, I don't have to tell anybody anything. I just have to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am, and not use that kind of language, not talk in the kinds of ways that a lot of other people are prone to do. And you know what? Most people will just fall in line. And I don't say that in order to say, they're dumb or anything like that. They see that you're acting as a decent human being, and they see that it makes sense for them to do likewise, and they see that when they deal with you, they don't have to deal with you from a perspective of obscenity, from a perspective of lasciviousness or whatever, and they don't. They just don't. And I've known many people who found this same approach to work for them. But again, even if they do, you stand up. You be the lone voice in the wilderness if that's what it takes. That's what I try to do. Somebody said something today about whether or not you working in a given workplace meant that you would end up taking on the characteristics of that workplace. Let me tell you something. I'm not saying that never happens for me, but I'm saying for the most part, I am who I am, and you better get used to who I am, because whether you like it or not, that's who I'm going to be. And I'm going to try and be a decent, forthright, not timid, but not overbearing individual. That's what I'm going to work towards. I'm going to work towards bringing decency in the world. And if you can do likewise, I highly suggest that you do that very thing. I hope that you're having a good day today. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I am Kurt. Today is Monday, the 20th of September of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Tuesday, the 21st of September of 2021. Well, thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thank you for coming along. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a plus or a boxing glove on Rumble or for a positive deal. You can give me a minus if you want to give me a negative feedback. You can give me a thumbs up or a like or a thumbs down or a dislike on YouTube if you want to do likewise. You can comment on any platform that allows you to comment, and I would love it if you did, because I like to know when I'm doing good and when I'm doing bad, and the numbers only tell me so much. Today we've been talking about timid isn't decent, and tomorrow we're going to talk about misusing tools, and that may not sound exactly like what's going to end up coming into it. Let me just tell you that I consider things tools that a lot of people don't. That'll help you to understand. All right, I need to go ahead and wrap this up, so I hope you're having a good day today. As I say, I hope the week is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on Tuesday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Monday, the 20th of September of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.